So you have some performance, you want to scale your Facebook ads. This is exactly how you can do it. And some of the things that I see that are common mistakes before scaling that really cause profit loss and really cause your account to really get stuck. And it's usually what you see is you increase spend, you see higher CPA, and then you end up being stuck essentially on that. Okay, so we are going to see exactly some of the common mistakes and how you can actually scale profitably on a more technical basis. You're not going to be really focused on creative. It's going to be focused on the ad account itself. Show you exactly the next steps to really scale essentially. And if you're new to the channel, I basically talk about paid ads, Google Meta ads, growth strategy, and to scale your business. And if you want more free resources like that, specific account structures, creative breakdowns, and winning ads, click the link below. I have free resources for you in the description. Completely free. You don't really have to do anything. So let's actually go into it. So how to scale your Facebook ads. Now, I really like this question because one of the most common things is people try to just jump straight into it, essentially. And I need you to just step back a bit and really define if you are on a position to scale, first of all, and if you how you can scale on a more tactical format. So the first thing is, apart from the ad account, do you see blended profitability actually being there essentially? And your customer metrics are trending into the right direction. And by that, I mean, is your blended performance and your blended profitability of the business? So for example, is revenue trending? Is MER trending on the right position? Do we have the CAC that we need to start scaling inside the account? And this is obviously not so meta specific, but potentially you have other sources. You maybe have Google, you may have organic, you may have email. And so we need to make sure we are factoring everything in and we are being realistic in terms of where is the performance. Because you may see great performance on like Shopify for the last 3 days, but you maybe have actually sent an email that had a great performance, and then obviously that translates into meta performance, and then you're not really having the clear metrics to scale essentially. And then what you do, you increase spend, you see CPA sparking, and you see profitability tanking again. So you pull back spend again, and you're back to square one. So the first is this. What I like to do is take a look at my essentially revenue, my MER, my new customer MER and CAC. Usually it's going to be the metrics, and then I also take a look at new customer revenue, new customer volume. How is my new customer velocity trending? Because obviously that has a great correlation with MET increasing as well if we are spending this amount of money there. Number 2, also very important, also a lot of people are actually missing it, is this. Do you have a creative system that consistently has a creative pipeline, and we're testing new stuff? That means we should have more winners coming over the next few weeks if we start scaling spend behind, maybe those 2 to 4 to 5 top performing ads that we have right now. Because if not, it means that we're going to scale, and then after a point, we're going to start fatiguing. And that essentially means that we are back again on square one, because then we need to start pulling back spend because we don't have anything to replace those top performing ads. And what's important, do you have a creative engine to produce top of funnel ads that can actually move the needle forward? If you don't, if the kind of answer is no, again, it doesn't mean that obviously if you have great blended efficiency, let's call that, and you have some room to push spend, doesn't mean that you don't need, that you just need to not spend, or you don't need to increase spend, but you need to have this at the back of your mind, because you want to do this on a completely different strategy. You're going to be increasing by maybe 20-30%, a bit more gradually. You also going to be starting thinking about how I can bring more creatives, because if you don't have that and you start scaling hard, again, in a couple of days, you're going to be on the same position essentially. So 3, do I have a hypothesis-based creative testing process to scale further once I get the next level of scale? This is just something that I also answered, but essentially it's like, is your creative process really nailed down? So we have essentially a hypothesis-based creative testing environment where we test new concepts, we test new angles, we test new types of creative that are actually going to be performing and actually going to be giving us learnings we can actually double down on. Number 4 here, do I have enough winning content to scale? I say this also all the time. You get one creative that is doing decently, not even that well, and you say, okay, I'm going to scale this. Now, there's going to be 2 things that I'm seeing. First of all, this creative is not usually top of funnel. It's actually just a kind of problem aware / solution aware, even product aware kind of segment that we're targeting. So scale is going to be questionable, how much we can scale this. So if you have like 1 or 2 assets, again, be also conscious that the harder you scale the spend, the longevity of the asset shrinks. Because if you think, and I have another video of that, which I'm going to link right now, basically, let me just make a visual so we also are aware. When you have an ad, maybe this is, let's say that this is spent here, and this is, time. So you start right here, you're just launching the ad essentially. So what typically happens on most ads is a curve like this. Performance is great, you can actually spend, and then it starts plateauing, and then hits a point that it starts declining, and then it drops. Now, this is essentially the time is spent, right? Now, if you obviously start scaling a lot harder, you're going to consider this to be also shrink. So you can potentially have this fatigued by this point instead of this point. What I mean by that is essentially we need to start bringing new creatives that are winners inside the meta accounts. So make sure you have enough winning content to scale. Potentially, if you have like also the more diversification you can have in terms of your winners, the more meta accounts people spend behind a few different ads, because then you just don't end up in a very risky position where you have just one winning ad scaling. Number 5, super important, and we're gonna see this with exact now account breakdowns in terms of what I mean here. Is this coming from existing or new customer? And by this I mean the actual performance. Because this is also something that I see kind of a bit of a rookie mistake, as I like to call. Because obviously people think that there's an ad that's doing very well, and they say, okay, let's double down on it. Let's actually get more creative. Let's actually, really get the resources. But in reality, it's just an ad that is mainly getting that performance from existing customers, which is again not scalable. And are you running a 7-day click 1-day view, which is again goes hand in hand with the previous question, but it's like usually there's going to be a lot of performance from view through conversion when you're running on a 7-day click 1-day view. That's why I also recommend switching to a 7-day click, or at least a 7-day click 1-day engage view. So with that being said, if you're unsure about some of those questions, obviously don't worry about it. We're going to see exactly what I mean on some of those stuff, on the more technical stuff. Is this something that you need to consider before scaling? And again, it doesn't mean if you don't have everything right, either that you can't really push spend if you see performance. You just need to be conscious about how you can plan the next step, essentially. Because first of all, if you don't see the blending profitability, don't scale. If any of the other ones is, again, basically a no, or like a kind of wrong answer, or that you don't feel confident about, you can scale gradually, but expect performance to dip quite heavily. Or at least you can obviously take advantage of like a few days, but don't think that this is going to be lasting for a lot. This is exactly the point that I'm trying to make from all these questions. Now, let's actually go into a kind of if-yes scenario, which I just mentioned, but a bit more technical as well. What you can actually do if you hit yes. Now, what I like to do usually, if I have something to push, is I'm going to start increasing spend on my core environment. If you are interested about what I mean about core, is my scaling campaign. If you're also interested about here the way I'm actually structuring the account, click the link, have the video somewhere here. But essentially what I have is a dedicated campaign just for scaling my winners. And what I do is I just scale this by 20 to 30%, which is essentially the upper limit is going to be 30% in terms of like what causes the campaign to get back into learning. Now, if I have, a very, limited time that I want to scale, maybe I have a sale, whatever, I'm going to be more aggressive on that. There's no question around it. But usually on a BAU fashion, 30% is the limit, so we don't get anything back to learning. No, the other thing that you can do if you have confidence, on all the above, is add a custom campaign here. What I would do is essentially, a custom campaign is I'll take my essentially top performers and put them into a cost cap. So there's a manual bidding campaign. Now, I like to start with like 10 to 20% higher than my average CPA or cost per lead or ROAS target, whatever that is. Usually it's going to be CPA. By that I mean what I'm doing here, and it's obviously a bit counterintuitive, is in theory the cost campaign is to squeeze more efficient CPAs. Now, if you haven't launched any cost campaign, you need to start getting a big delivery, because usually those don't actually get spent. So if I have a weekend or a payday that I want to put it almost spent, well, I'm gonna start to be more flexible, and then I'm gonna walk down the cap. So let's say I started like $50. I'm gonna walk it down to 40, for example, 45, then 40, for example. Where I know 40 is super profitable, I'm getting like $50 CPAs in kind of general. So a cost campaign is amazing to squeeze more efficient CPAs, especially around payday, when people are actually getting paid. You see better performance, start of the month and end of the month, a sale period. And just in general, if you want to squeeze a lot more some of those winning ads that we just talked about, and just get a few more CPAs, bringing down the whole account average. Now, you can also horizontally scale within the core campaign, which essentially, you have one core campaign, you have one ad set with all the winners. Now, once you start scaling, you have a decent creative engine, you should have winners coming in weekly or at least bi-weekly. So in a theory, that one ad set is going to have this amount of spent, and it's probably going to be a couple of ads that get all the spent. So then you're like, okay, I want to start scaling some of those winners that I have just that have just emerged from my creative testing. And what you're going to do is you're going to add another ad set two, let's say. That's going to have, let's say that is April now, and we have all the March winners, or like March second week winners. And you're going to group all the March winners into this. And then you have two ad sets. I still like to have an ABO, so it doesn't. I just don't let Meta to do the distribution here, because obviously this is a high spending ad here, ad set that has winning ads. So in theory, it should still be live. It should still kind of make sure we are there. And this is exactly what we're going to do here. This horizontally it can add a lot more spent more aggressively, because obviously we can double the spend here easily. We don't have to be limited on any like 20-30% rule. But also obviously don't do this, because obviously it doesn't mean that because you scale inside the creative testing campaign that it will replicate the same scale on that core campaign. And the other thing here, which is super important, is craft new top of funnel angles. Again, this is not potentially technical perspective. It is more creative focused, but it's super important. You need to go back to the drawing board and see what's actually working and drive multiple funnel creatives into that creative testing engine, so we can get more stuff tested and kind of scaled. Now, if no, there are a couple of options here. Obviously, I mentioned that you can obviously start bumping spends. So you can also do, 20% up on top performing concepts. But the really thing here, the key thing to do is focus on creative testing, craft new top funnel angles, focus on like adding more spend there so we can get more winners, so we can scale. But you can also add a cost campaign, which is not going to be adding a lot of spend into your account, but more so getting a bit more efficient CPAs from some of your winners. Because obviously to watching this video, there should be something there you have seen some scale or some group performance, so we can potentially even scale it further. So there's two ways. Now, we have this down. Let me show you the most common mistakes that I've seen. Now, here's a screenshot of another account that I'm managing at the moment. We have that I just audited. Here is a visual of one ad set, one of the high spending ad sets as well, I think, over the last 30 days, that essentially have just audited, and we actually were looking to kind of work together. And it's one of the most things that I really kind of amazed them. They're really kind of intrigued by that. And it's just so simple as well. So you can also have a look at if you're actually doing this. So you can see here, basically I've sorted by spent, and you can see here the top ad here. You can see this ad is having a 3.8 ROAS, a 4.4 click-through rate. This is super strong. You say it has 3.8 ROAS. It's super strong. I can see another 5.2 here. Okay, maybe these two are not that great, but I see these two as doing very, very good. And I'm like, okay, let's, and the guys were liking on these two creates because obviously those were doing with the better, and obviously we want to get more ads like that. Now, there's a few things that are happening here that you need to check. If you go customers here, you can see the same ad had 3.8 ROAS, 5x is coming from existing customers, and 1.2 is coming from new customers, which essentially means that this is not a scalable ad. This is basically getting the best out of the existing customers. First of all, I would check the exclusions here, because this is a bit interesting, but I will also check another thing which I'm going to cover in a second. And you can see the kind of second ad is a bit more balanced. But again, the third ad, I don't have the kind of the 5x example that I just mentioned. But even the kind of third ad here, you can see it has a 2.3 blended, 3.2 is coming from existing, 1.2 is coming from the new audience. CPA is like double here, so you can see you're not getting profitable customers at like first purchase. It's super key. Have a look at now, or maybe just wait a moment, because obviously I'm going to show you another thing that you need to check out, and this is going to be one of the most important things you need to check out. Like, have a look about go into, I think, breakdown, and this is audience segments, and basically so your different basically distribution across different segments. But this is even more interesting. We are seeing here, and what I have done here is that basically there's another option that you can see the breakdown or the comparison based on your current attribution. So basically the metrics that we have here, and incremental attribution. And incremental basically means how much these conversions are actually accurate and actually incremental to the business. How accurate this is to my Shopify, to my revenue, to my leads, and not just obviously meta being meta. And you can see here the difference is massive. So you can see here we went from a 3.2 blended ad set performance to a 1.69, which is insane. This is like completely different numbers. Again, double the CPA, and you are rethinking about putting more resources into those creatives, right? And the reason why, and again, just have a look at this yourself. You can go into, I think it's on the columns, and if you see the last couple options, compare attribution settings, and there's going to be the option of incremental attribution. The reason here, and you could also, I guess, compare with that. This is running on a 7-day click, 1-day view. And this basically means that most of the conversions are view-through conversions. And this is one of the most important things that I see brands basically doing wrong, is that view-through. Is basically Meta is claiming a lot of that attribution with just people just viewing the ad, not clicking, not taking any action, which means essentially it's just not incremental, just not getting people to buy. It's, someone potentially, just think someone bought from someone just seeing an ad, which it can be from anywhere. It can be potentially from like email, organic. So one thing to start moving into is what I recommend is 7-day click. And recently I've been playing around with like 7-day click, 1-day engaged view, which engaged view basically is like someone actually just viewed and clicked and actually took an action within that video. So with that being said, have a look at the existing versus new customer breakdown and the attribution settings before scaling. And I hope that video helped you in terms of like also having some technical things that you can do, some actionable things that you can do, how you can scale, but also really think about before scaling some of the things that you need to make sure you have to really scale hard. On another video, I'm gonna go more in depth on like those top of funnel creatives and what you need to actually create to scale. But this is exactly how I'm scaling. This is my optimization and kind of thought process in terms of how I'm scaling inside the account. And I hope you find this valuable. If you want more specific breakdowns in terms of like account structures, creatives, I'm scaling, be actually hands-on on accounts, click the link below. I have a free resource that you can actually have a look, and hopefully that is a lot helpful. So thanks a lot, and I hope you see you on the next one. I really appreciate the time taking this to watch the video. Bye-bye.